Be me, 26-year-old feminist. Roommate suddenly moves out. Can't afford rent alone. Only candidate is some nice guy programmer. Convinced he's hiding something. All men are toxic. I'll prove it. Let him move in anyway. So, here's the deal, anons. Working as a marketing coordinator in this overpriced city. Been living with my female roommate Sarah for what feels like forever. Everything was perfect until one random day she drops the bomb. Tells me she's moving in with her boyfriend. Gives me basically no time to figure things out. Thanks, Sarah. Really appreciate that stellar timing. Panic mode, fully activated. Rent is literally eating half my paycheck every month. Start desperately posting on every roommate finder site I can think of. Craigslist, Facebook groups, those sketchy apps nobody talks about. Get maybe 15 or 20 responses over the next few days. Most are complete disasters asking weird personal questions. One guy wants to know my cup size in his first message. Another asks if I'm 420 friendly and DTF. Delete those immediately. Then there's this one response that seems almost too normal. Guy named Mark says he works in software development. Sends actual references from previous roommates. Doesn't ask a single inappropriate question. Just wants to know about rent, utilities, and house rules. Sounds like he was written by a PR team. My immediate thought is obviously that he's hiding something. Nobody is actually this respectful and normal. Especially not men looking for female roommates. There has to be some kind of catch or ulterior motive. Cassie, who's been my ride or die since college, immediately agrees. She's been through this exact scenario multiple times. Tells me about this guy Kevin, who seemed perfect for 3 months, then started borrowing money and never paying it back. And another guy who turned out to be stealing her underwear. She insists that the nice ones are always the most dangerous. But here's my financial reality check. Can't afford this apartment alone. Moving would cost me at least $2,000 between deposits and moving trucks. Don't have that kind of money sitting around. Plus, finding a new place in this market is basically impossible. Decide to meet Mark at some generic coffee shop near my building, expecting typical dude bro energy with hidden agenda. Instead, walks in this completely ordinary-looking guy, probably around my age, maybe slightly older, wearing normal jeans and a button-down shirt, not trying to impress anyone or show off. We sit down, and he starts asking practical questions. Wants to know about the neighborhood, commute times to his office, asks about grocery stores and laundry situation, doesn't even glance at my chest once during the entire conversation, which honestly throws me off because that's not normal male behavior. Tells me he works remotely most days but goes into the office sometimes. Says he's pretty quiet, doesn't throw parties. Mentions he has a girlfriend who might visit occasionally. Asks if that's okay, rather than just assuming. My feminist radar is going absolutely crazy. This level of consideration and respect feels manufactured, like he's performing good guy behavior to get what he wants. Nobody is actually this thoughtful without expecting something in return. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Tell him he can move in at the beginning of next month. We shake hands, and he says he'll transfer the deposit that evening. Sure enough, money shows up in my account a few hours later. Exactly the amount we discussed. No games or negotiations. Spend the next couple weeks preparing for inevitable disappointment. Cassie keeps sending me articles about seemingly nice men who turned out to be serial killers. She's convinced I'm making a huge mistake. Starts planning intervention strategies for when things go wrong. Moving day arrives, and Mark shows up exactly when he said he would. Brings just a few boxes and basic furniture. Nothing excessive or weird. Helps carry some of my heavy stuff without being asked. Doesn't complain about anything or make demands. First few days are weirdly uneventful. He keeps his space clean and organized. Doesn't leave dishes in the sink or bathroom hair everywhere. makes coffee in the morning but doesn't assume I want any, just quietly goes about his business. This is where my paranoia really kicks in. Start testing him in subtle ways. Leave dirty dishes in the sink to see if he gets passive-aggressive. Accidentally knock over some mail near his door. Play music slightly louder than normal during his work calls. His responses are completely not what I expected. Cleanse the dishes without saying anything or sighing dramatically. Picks up the mail and stacks it neatly on the counter. Just closes his office door when I'm being loud. No complaints. Cassie visits after he's been there maybe a week or two. Immediately starts looking for evidence of toxic behavior. Checks his bathroom for red flags. Examines his food in the fridge for clues about his personality. Searches for hidden cameras or weird collections. Finds absolutely nothing concerning. His bathroom is cleaner than mine. Fridge has normal food, plus some fancy coffee creamer. No suspicious electronics or creepy posters anywhere. She leaves frustrated and convinced he's hiding something major. Meanwhile, I'm starting to notice small, thoughtful gestures. He always asks if I need anything when he's going to the store. Holds doors open without making it weird or expecting praise. Offers to help with heavy packages, but doesn't insist when I say no. Remembers that I don't like certain types of music and keeps his volume down. This creates cognitive dissonance in my brain. Spent years believing that men only do nice things to get something. But Mark isn't asking for anything or keeping score, just seems to be naturally considerate as default behavior. Around this time, he mentions his girlfriend Lena more frequently. Talks about taking her to some art exhibition she wanted to see. Mentions cooking dinner for her after she had a stressful week at work. Describes her thoughts and opinions like he actually values them. My immediate assumption is that he's putting on an act. Probably tells her he's single when she's not around, or maybe she's completely made up to make him seem safer. Decide I need to see this relationship myself to judge. Opportunity comes when he asks if Lena can come over for dinner. Obviously, I say yes because I want to investigate. Spend the entire day preparing to catch him in lies or inconsistencies. Plan to observe their interaction for signs of toxicity or control. Lena shows up, and she's genuinely lovely. Not in a fake way or trying too hard way. Just naturally warm and friendly person. Treats me like an actual human being instead of competition. Watching them together completely breaks my brain. They're affectionate without being gross about it. Mark asks her opinion on things and actually listens to her answers. She teases him about something, and he laughs instead of getting defensive. They split cooking duties without negotiating or keeping score. This is not how I thought relationships worked. Everything I knew about men suggested they either ignore their partners or control them. But these two seem to genuinely enjoy each other's company. No drama, no passive-aggressive comments, no power struggles. Lena tells stories about Mark helping her move apartments. Mentions how he drove 4 hours to pick her up when her car broke down. Describes him meeting her parents and being nervous about making good impression. Talks about him like he's actually her partner instead of her burden. After she leaves, I'm sitting in my room completely confused. Either Mark is the world's most elaborate manipulator, or maybe my entire worldview about men might be somewhat flawed. Neither option feels comfortable to consider. Tom, this guy I've known since college, comes over maybe a week later. Total contrast to everything I've been observing with Mark. Immediately starts complaining about his job, his ex, his roommate. Makes jokes that aren't funny and expects me to laugh. Comments on my appearance in ways that make me uncomfortable. When Mark comes home from work, Tom gets weird and competitive. Starts bragging about his salary and his car. Makes subtle digs about programmers being antisocial nerds, clearly trying to establish dominance or something equally ridiculous. Mark's response is to be politely friendly and then excuse himself. Doesn't rise to the bait or engage in whatever contest Tom thinks they're having. Just treats him like a normal person and goes to make dinner. Tom keeps trying to get Mark to argue or prove himself. Brings up politics, sports, work stuff, anything to create conflict. Mark either agrees when appropriate or changes the subject smoothly, refuses to get drawn into any kind of masculine posturing. After Tom leaves, he immediately starts texting me complaints about Mark. Says Mark is probably gay because he didn't engage with the competitive behavior, calls him fake nice, and insists he's definitely hiding something, suggests I should be worried about living with someone so weird. This interaction really highlights the difference. Tom represents what I always thought was normal male behavior. Aggressive, self-centered, always trying to win something. Mark represents something I didn't think existed. Calm, secure, doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Cassie still insists this is all an elaborate setup. Sends me screenshots of true crime documentaries about charming psychopaths. Keeps asking when I'm going to discover his real personality. Refuses to consider that maybe he's actually just a decent person. But I'm starting to question my own assumptions. Lived with this guy for months now without a single major issue. No yelling, no manipulation, no weird demands or boundary violations. Just consistent, respectful behavior day after day. Meanwhile, observing his relationship with Lena continues to challenge everything. They have disagreements sometimes, but handle them like adults. Never heard them screaming at each other or slamming doors. They talk through problems instead of creating drama. Lena gets offered a job opportunity in another city. This is where I expect everything to fall apart. Based on my experience, this is when men usually reveal their controlling side, either forbid her from taking it or break up rather than compromise. Instead, they spend weeks discussing options rationally. Mark researches the cost of flights between cities. They talk about timeline for potentially moving together. Consider pros and cons without anyone getting emotional or manipulative. Eventually decide to try long distance for a while. Mark seems genuinely supportive of her career advancement. Helps her research the new city and job market. Talks about visiting her and planning their future together. This completely demolishes my understanding of how relationships work. Always assumed that men sabotage women's success out of insecurity, or that couples break up rather than handle inconvenience. But here's evidence that mature adults can actually solve problems together. Lina moves away and Mark handles it with grace. No dramatic meltdowns or guilt trips. Just misses her and plans visits. Continues being the same considerate roommate as always. Around this time, I meet David through work. Normally would have dismissed him immediately. He's polite, asks thoughtful questions, seems genuinely interested in my opinions. Everything my brain categorizes as too good to be true, to be. But living with Mark has slowly shifted my perspective. Maybe some men actually are raised to be respectful and considerate. Maybe healthy behavior isn't always hiding toxic intentions. Maybe I've been self-sabotaging by assuming the worst. David asks me out, and instead of making excuses, I agree. Spend the entire first date waiting for red flags. He pays attention when I talk, asks follow-up questions, doesn't interrupt or try to one-up my stories, walks me home without expecting anything. Second date, he remembers details from our previous conversation, brings up a book I mentioned wanting to read, suggests restaurants based on dietary restrictions I mentioned. Again, no pressure or expectations beyond enjoying my company. My friends' reactions are predictably skeptical. Cassie insists he's love-bombing me to lower my defenses. Says the nice behavior will disappear once he has me. Predicts he'll reveal his true nature within a few weeks. But watching Mark's continued relationship with Lena provides counter-evidence. They've been together over a year now, and he's still considerate. Visits her regularly, supports her career, treats her well. No dramatic personality changes or revealed toxicity. Lena eventually moves back, and they get engaged. Mark asks if she can stay at our place while apartment hunting. Offers to pay extra rent for the inconvenience. Continues being respectful about shared spaces and household responsibilities. Planning their wedding becomes this beautiful, collaborative process. They make decisions together without fighting or manipulation. Both families seem to genuinely like each other. Everything feels healthy and supportive rather than stressful. Meanwhile, my relationship with David continues developing. He meets Mark and Lena, and they all get along naturally. No competition or weird dynamics, just four adults who enjoy each other's company. David's behavior remains consistently kind and thoughtful. He has flaws and bad days like everyone else, but handles stress and disappointment maturely. Doesn't take his problems out on me or expect me to fix everything. This gradual shift in my worldview feels seismic. Spent so many years convinced that all men were fundamentally selfish. Built entire identity around protecting myself from their toxicity. But evidence keeps contradicting those beliefs. Cassie eventually meets David and grudgingly admits he seems okay. Still insists I should keep my guard up, but can't point to any specific concerning behavior. Just maintains that men always reveal their true selves eventually. Tom, meanwhile, continues being exactly who he always was, still complains constantly and makes everything about himself. Recent girlfriend broke up with him for no reason. Blames feminism for making women impossible to please. Contrast between Tom and the other men in my life becomes stark. Tom represents the behavior I expected from all men. Mark and David represent something I didn't think existed, mature, secure, capable of genuine partnership. Mark and Lena's wedding is beautiful and drama-free. Two people who clearly love and respect each other. Families who support their relationship. Celebration focused on joy rather than performance or show. They find an apartment together, and Mark moves out. Thanks me for being such a great roommate. Offers to help me find someone new or cover extra rent while I search. Leaves the place cleaner than when he moved in. Living alone again gives me time to process everything. Year of observing healthy relationship dynamics up close. Seeing men behave with consistent kindness and respect. Watching problems get solved through communication rather than conflict. David and I continue growing closer. He meets my family, and they actually like him. Not because he's charming or manipulative, but because he's genuinely interested in getting to know them. My relationship patterns start changing naturally. Don't spend energy looking for hidden motives or testing his loyalty. Can have disagreements without assuming he'll become abusive. Trust his words because his actions consistently match them. This shift affects other areas of my life too. Less defensive and suspicious in general. More willing to give people benefit of the doubt. Better at recognizing actual red flags versus imagined ones. Cassie struggles with my changing perspective. Our friendship becomes strained because she's still stuck in old patterns, continues dating men who treat her poorly, then uses those experiences to validate her beliefs about all men. Try to share what I've learned, but she's not ready to hear it. Insists Mark was performing the entire time we lived together. Predicts his marriage will fall apart within a few years. Refuses to consider that some men might actually be decent. Meanwhile, Mark and Lena settle into married life happily. Occasionally meet up for dinner or group activities. Their relationship continues being stable and supportive. No dramatic personality changes or revealed toxicity. David eventually meets my extended family. Handles my skeptical relatives with patience and humor. Doesn't get defensive when they ask probing questions. wins them over through consistent, respectful behavior. We move in together after dating for over a year. Process feels natural rather than scary. Don't spend energy preparing for inevitable disappointment. Just excited to share daily life with someone I trust. Living with David confirms what I learned from observing Mark. Healthy men don't change personalities once they have you. They continue being considerate and respectful, because that's who they actually are, not a performance. Looking back on this whole journey feels surreal. Started as confirmed man-hater, convinced all males were toxic, ended up in healthy relationship with genuinely good person. Transformation happened gradually through consistent evidence. Cassie and I eventually have honest conversation about our friendship. She admits she's jealous of my happiness, but still believes I'm being naive or lucky. Can't accept that her approach might be self-defeating. We agree to disagree and maintain friendship, but our dynamic has fundamentally changed. Can't unsee what I've learned about relationships. Won't go back to assuming the worst about everyone. Tom continues his pattern of failed relationships, blames women for being too picky or damaged by feminism, refuses to examine his own behavior or attitude, represents everything I used to think was inevitable. Mark and Lena celebrate their first wedding anniversary, invite David and me to small dinner party, evening filled with laughter and genuine conversation. No drama, competition, or underlying tension. Their marriage remains stable and happy. They support each other's goals and dreams, handle challenges together rather than creating additional problems, prove that healthy relationships actually exist. David proposes after we've been together almost 2 years. Moment feels right, rather than pressured or manipulative. He's not trying to lock me down or control me, just wants to build future together as equal partners. Planning our wedding becomes collaborative process. Both families blend together naturally. No major conflicts or power struggles. Focus stays on celebrating our commitment. Sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd never lived with Mark. Might have continued sabotaging relationships out of fear. Probably would have driven David away with suspicion and testing. Could have missed out on genuine happiness. Feminist beliefs haven't disappeared completely. Still advocate for women's rights and equality. But understanding has become more nuanced. Recognize that gender generalizations hurt everyone. Learn to distinguish between toxic masculinity and healthy masculine behavior. Can identify genuine red flags versus imagined threats. Developed better boundaries and communication skills. Stopped assuming malicious intent behind every kind gesture. Live with him for a year. No drama, no games, no manipulation, just respect, kindness, and stability. He marries the sweetest girl I've ever met. I finally meet someone like him, too. Not all men are monsters. Turns out the monster was my own prejudice.